Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at a 17th century comedy
Oh, fun.
called The Demoiselle, or The New Ordinary.
I love that.
And get this,
Okay.
the play is about a broke gentleman who's trying to get his wealth back.
Okay.
And he decides to auction off his daughter's virginity to the highest bidder as her dowry.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a premise.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So it raises a few eyebrows, I think.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
And, while that premise might sound a little shocking to modern ears, it's really important to remember the context of the time.
Yeah.
So this isn't just some salacious or, over-the-top story.
Right.
It's a satire cleverly disguised as a comedy, and it takes aim at the heart of London society in the 1650s.
Okay.
Underneath all the laughs, there's this really pointed critique of the era's obsession with money and social climbing.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Who are the main players in this morally ambiguous family drama? And how do their actions expose the deeper societal issues that are at play here?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So first we have Sir Humphrey Dryground.
Oh.
He's the bankrupt gentleman behind this outrageous scheme.
Right.
And his desperation to regain his lost wealth, it's almost palpable on the page. And through him,
Right.
I think Brome, the playwright, is really saying something about the lengths that people will go to when they're stripped of their status and financial security.
Yeah, he's not really concerned with the ethics of his actions at all.
Not really, no.
What about his daughter Alice? Is she aware of what's going on?
No. Alice is completely in the dark about her father's intentions.
Wow.
She's portrayed as this genuinely sweet and innocent young woman,
Oh.
hoping for a true love match, which makes Dryground's plan even more unsettling.
Right.
And her naivete also serves as a stark contrast to all the cunning and manipulation that's happening around her.
Okay.
It's as though Brome is using her character to highlight the vulnerability of innocence in a society that's so obsessed with material gain.
Yeah, so we've got this morally bankrupt father and a clueless daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any voices of reason in this play? Is anyone pushing back against Dryground's scheme?
You're right. Not everyone is on board with this plan.
Okay, good.
So there's Watt, his son.
Okay.
He's recently been released from debtor's prison.
Oh, geez.
He's a bit of a rogue, but ultimately not malicious.
Yeah, okay.
He's more interested in his own survival
Mhm.
than, actively exploiting his sister.
Right.
Then there's Valentine Dryground's son-in-law,
Okay.
and he really serves as the moral compass of the play.
Okay.
He's constantly trying to do what's right.
Yeah.
And his opposition to Dryground's plan provides this necessary counterpoint to the rampant self-interest that seems to drive most of the other characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting that even within the family, there are such vastly different responses to the situation.
Right.
It kind of speaks to the complexity of the moral dilemmas that Brome is exploring in this play. What about outside the family? Are there any characters that embody the societal forces that Dryground is both a victim of and contributing to?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't really tell a story about financial ruin without a villainous moneylender, right?
True.
And that's where Vermine comes in.
Okay.
He's this ruthless usurer who holds Dryground's mortgage.
Oh, no.
And in many ways, he embodies the corrupt underbelly of London society.
Okay.
He thrives on exploiting others' misfortune and really highlights those predatory practices that often accompany unchecked greed.
He sounds like a classic antagonist.
He does.
Yeah.
But is Brome portraying him with any redeeming qualities, or is he purely just a symbol of greed and corruption?
Yeah.
That's what's so interesting about Brome. He's so masterful at layering his characters.
Okay.
So Vermine isn't just this one-dimensional villain.
Okay.
Yes, he's obsessed with money, but he's also completely blind to the consequences of his actions.
Right.
It's almost as if he's convinced himself that his pursuits are justified. And it's this delusion that makes him such a compelling target for Brome's satire.
I can already see how Brome is using these characters to paint this really nuanced picture of London society.
Absolutely.
We've got the desperate Dryground, the innocent Alice, the morally upright Valentine,
Yeah,
and the ruthlessly greedy Vermine.
it's a great cast of characters.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And they each represent different aspects of the moral and social landscape of the time.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that Brome doesn't shy away from using humor to make his points.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So how does he inject comedy into such a morally complex situation?
Well, that's what makes the Demoiselle so brilliant.
Okay.
Brome seamlessly blends humor and social commentary,
Yeah.
creating this world
Yeah.
that is both entertaining and thought-provoking.
You're right.
For instance, one of those over-the-top characters is Sir Amphilis.
Okay.
He's this foolish and miserly knight from Cornwall,
Okay.
and he was originally supposed to marry Alice for her expected dowry.
Mhm.
His obsession with duck hunting and his just completely over-the-top grief over the death of his mare are played for laughs.
Wow.
But they also reveal this deeper societal obsession with frivolous pursuits over genuine human connection.
So even the comedic relief characters serve a deeper purpose.
Exactly.
Beyond just the laughs, they actually reflect some of the core themes of the play.
Right.
It sounds like Brome was a master at using humor to really make his audience think.
Yeah, he was really clever.
Yeah.
And then there's Bumpsy Dryground's eccentric father-in-law.
Okay.
And he is determined to teach Dryground a lesson in financial responsibility.
Okay. How does he go about doing that?
Well, that's where the comedy really shines.
Okay.
So instead of lecturing him, Bumpsy decides to mimic Dryground's reckless spending habits.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
it is.
Poor.
He goes all out, he buys matching outfits for himself, and his wife starts living this ridiculously lavish lifestyle,
Oh my God.
all to show Dryground how quickly money can disappear when you prioritize appearances over prudence.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hilarious.
Wow.
But beyond the laughs, Bumpsy's actions also speak volumes about the changing social landscape of London at the time.
Oh.
It's as though Brome is using him to highlight the absurdity of a society that increasingly equates wealth with virtue,
Right.
no matter how that wealth is acquired.
That's really interesting to me. We've
Yeah.
got this backdrop of financial instability and desperation and this scheme that is so audacious and appalling. And now a character who is almost mocking the very system that has ruined his son-in-law.
Right.
It's brilliant.
It is.
Yeah, it's a great way to hold up a mirror to society and make the audience question their own values.
Exactly. And to add another layer of complexity, we have Frances.
Okay.
She's a young gentlewoman disguised as this sophisticated French demoiselle to help with Dryground's scheme.
I love it.
And her broken English and exaggerated mannerisms create a lot of comedic misunderstandings.
Okay.
But she's also a commentary on the societal expectations placed on women at the time.
Okay, how so?
Well, on the surface, she's playing the role of this refined French woman,
Yeah.
teaching wealthy ladies about courtly behavior.
Right.
But underneath that facade, she's a clever and resourceful woman who is really using the situation to her advantage.
Okay.
Yeah,
She sounds like a real wild card.
she is.
It must be tough for her to participate in the scheme while also trying to maintain control of her own destiny.
Absolutely. There's a lot at stake for her.
Yeah.
But she navigates the situation with wit and intelligence, using her disguise to challenge traditional gender roles and expose the absurdity of certain social conventions.
Okay.
In a way, she's almost like a female version of Bumpsy,
Okay.
using humor and subversion to undermine the very system that seeks to control her.
I love that.
Yeah,
So she's not just a pawn in Dryground's game, she's really shaping the narrative.
right.
Maybe even using it as a platform for her own empowerment.
Exactly.
And to further highlight the vast spectrum of London society,
Yeah,
Brome introduces Phyllis,
Yeah.
who's a witty and streetwise beggar girl.
yeah.
And she thrives in the chaotic environment of the play.
Yes, she does.
She's such a contrast to the wealth and privilege of the other characters,
Right.
and her presence serves as a constant reminder of the inequality that exists
Absolutely.
just outside the walls of the new ordinary.
Yeah, it's like Brome is constantly shifting our perspective, showing us both the glittering facade and the gritty underbelly of this world.
Right, and he's not afraid to expose the cracks in society, even while making us laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Right.
And that's what makes this play so compelling.
It really does.
Yeah, it's not just a lighthearted romp.
No.
It's a pointed critique of the hypocrisies, the injustices, and the moral compromises that shape human behavior.
Absolutely.
And we haven't even delved into the new ordinary itself,
I know, right?
which is more than just a setting. It's
Yeah.
a microcosm of the society that Brome is satirizing.
Exactly.
That's where I think things are going to get really interesting.
I think so too.
So tell me more about this new ordinary. What makes it such a potent symbol of the social forces that are at play?
Okay, well, remember how we talked about the New Ordinary being this fancy establishment where
Yeah.
people gather to gamble and show off their wealth?
Yeah.
It's also the place where Dryground plans to carry out his unique business proposition for his daughter.
Right, the whole auctioning off her virginity thing.
Yes, exactly.
I'm still wrapping my head around that.
I know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's certainly a bold move on Dryground's part.
For sure.
He's essentially turning the New Ordinary into a high-stakes marketplace where men can literally bid on Alice's future.
That's just depraved.
It is.
But I guess it does speak to the lengths that Dryground is willing to go to restore his fortune.
Yeah, it really was.
And this is a comedy, so I'm assuming things don't go according to plan.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, good.
The play is full of twists and turns and hilarious misunderstandings.
Oh, I love it.
So
yeah,
it's a wild ride.
So we've got this powder keg of a
Yeah.
setting. The New Ordinary with all its glitz and gambling.
Yeah.
And Dryground's outrageous plan is unfolding within its walls. It's
Yep.
like a stage within a stage,
It is.
amplifying the hypocrisy and desperation at play.
Right.
What are some of the unintended consequences that arise from Dryground's audacious scheme?
Well, for one, it throws the already chaotic world of the New Ordinary into even greater disarray.
Okay.
Remember
Well,
why?
yes, Dryground's mischievous son.
Yeah, he gets swept up in the chaos,
Uh-huh.
and he's mistaken for a pimp,
Oh, no.
and nearly gets thrown into the Thames by an angry mob.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
That's incredible. What leads to such a drastic reaction?
It's such a brilliant moment of satire on Brome's part.
Yeah.
You know, these so-called gentlemen who frequent the New Ordinary,
Yeah.
they're perfectly happy to participate in Dryground's scheme,
Right.
turning a blind eye to its immorality.
Yeah, as long as it serves their desires.
Exactly. But when they perceive Watt as a threat to the social order,
Yeah.
as someone profiting from the exploitation of a young woman,
Right.
they react with outrage and violence.
It's amazing how Brome uses this comedic scene to expose the double standards of this upper class.
It is.
They're quick to condemn those who operate outside the bounds of social respectability,
Hey.
while simultaneously engaging in morally questionable behavior themselves.
Exactly. It's a classic case of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
They're willing to exploit Alice's vulnerability as long as it's done discreetly,
Right.
under the guise of respectability.
Yeah. But when someone like Watt disrupts that facade,
Right.
their true colors are revealed.
Exactly.
So we see how Dryground's scheme impacts the men in this world.
Right.
But what about the women?
Oh, that's a great question.
How do they navigate this environment where their value seems to be measured primarily in terms of their marriageability
Yeah.
and their ability to restore a man's fortune?
That's crucial.
Mm.
So Alice, as we've discussed, is completely oblivious to the machinations surrounding her.
Yeah.
She's caught in this web of societal expectations, focused on finding a genuine match, unaware that she's being treated as a commodity.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking to think about her innocence being exploited in such a calculated way.
It is.
What about the other women? Do any of them manage to subvert these expectations?
Oh, we have Frances.
Yeah, the young gentlewoman disguised as the French Demoiselle.
Exactly. She's in a particularly interesting position
Yeah.
because she's both a participant in Dryground's scheme,
Right.
but also a commentator on the very societal forces that have led to this situation.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that she's not just a pawn in Dryground's game.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that? How does she manage to exert her own agency within this restrictive environment?
On the surface, she appears to be playing the role expected of her,
Yeah.
teaching wealthy ladies about courtly behavior
Right.
and embodying a certain level of sophistication.
Yeah.
But beneath that facade, she's incredibly clever and resourceful.
Okay.
She uses her disguise to gather information,
Mm-hmm.
manipulate situations to her advantage,
Yeah.
and ultimately challenge the limitations placed on women in this society.
So she's playing a game within a game.
She is.
Like, she understands that in this world, appearances are everything.
Exactly.
And she uses that to her advantage.
She does.
And she's not the only woman who refuses to be simply a victim of circumstance.
Right.
Remember Phyllis, the witty, treat-wise beggar girl?
Yeah.
She exists on the fringes of this society, exposed to its harsh realities.
Right.
And yet she thrives
She does.
in a way that many of the wealthier characters do not.
Exactly. She possesses this level of resilience and resourcefulness
Yeah.
that's completely absent in those who are consumed by the pursuit of wealth and status.
Right. She seems to have this inner strength that the others don't.
Exactly. She's a reminder that true strength and resilience are not determined by social standing or material possessions.
Okay.
In a world obsessed with appearances, Phyllis embodies a different kind of power.
I like that.
Yeah, the power to adapt, to survive, and to find humor even in the most challenging circumstances.
It's incredible how Brome weaves together these diverse female perspectives,
It is.
showcasing the different ways women navigate a society that often seeks to limit their choices
Yeah?
and define their worth. It adds such a layer of depth and complexity to the play
It does.
that goes beyond the surface level comedy.
Absolutely. And this complexity extends to the play's ending as well.
Oh, you can't leave me hanging.
I know.
Everyone wants to know, does Dry Ground actually go through with his plan to auction off his daughter's virginity?
Right?
Does this morally bankrupt scheme succeed?
Well, I don't want to give away all the surprises,
Okay.
but I can tell you that Brome offers a resolution
Okay.
that is both satisfying and thought-provoking,
Okay.
while virtue ultimately prevails.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a straightforward victory.
Okay.
There are these unexpected twists and turns
Yeah.
that keep the audience guessing until the very end.
Okay. So you've piqued my curiosity.
Good.
I can't wait to read the play and see how it all unfolds.
I highly recommend it. There's a wild ride, full of hilarious moments
Okay.
and insightful observations about human nature,
Great.
and it's a testament to Brome's skill as a playwright,
Yeah.
that he's able to tackle such serious themes with wit and humor,
Yeah.
leaving the audience both entertained and challenged.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of challenges,
Yes.
the outline mentioned a powerful confrontation
Okay.
between Valentine,
Yeah.
our moral compass,
Right.
and a character named Brookle, who
Yeah.
is Brookle.
Brookle is fascinating
Okay.
because he represents the tangible consequences of Vermine's greed.
Okay.
He's a gentleman who's been financially ruined by Vermine's predatory lending practices.
Oh, so he's kind of a foil to Vermine.
Exactly.
A living embodiment of the devastation that Vermine's relentless pursuit of profit leaves behind.
Precisely. And their confrontation occurs after Valentine publicly denounces Vermine
Okay.
for his unethical business dealings,
Right.
exposing his hypocrisy and calling for justice for those he has harmed.
So this confrontation is a clash between two opposing forces.
Yeah.
The relentless pursuit of wealth embodied by Vermine
Right.
and the defense of morality and justice championed by Valentine.
Exactly.
What role does Brookle play in this clash? Does he seek revenge for what Vermine has done to him?
That's what makes the scene so compelling.
Okay.
While Brookle clearly harbors a grudge against both Vermine and Dry Ground,
Yeah.
he doesn't resort to violence or petty revenge.
Okay.
Instead, he delivers this incredibly powerful and moving monologue
Okay.
about the curse that follows ill-gotten gains,
Interesting.
not just for the individual, but for generations to come.
Wow.
He speaks about the weight of guilt,
Okay.
the erosion of trust,
Yeah.
and the spiritual consequences of prioritizing wealth over human decency.
Wow, that's heavy stuff for a comedy.
It is.
It sounds like Brookle's monologue elevates the play beyond a simple satire and
Yeah.
forces the audience to consider the deeper moral and societal implications of these actions. How do the other characters react to his words?
It's a turning point in the play.
Okay.
Even Sir Amphialus, who we've seen is obsessed with his own trivial pursuits,
Right.
is visibly moved by Brookle's words.
Okay.
He begins to question his own relentless pursuit of wealth,
Okay.
recognizing the emptiness of a life driven solely by material gain.
It's amazing how Brome uses this scene to demonstrate the power of individual conscience,
Yes.
even in a world seemingly consumed by greed and ambition.
Right.
Brookle's words act as a catalyst, prompting those around him to reevaluate their own choices
Yeah.
and consider the true cost of their actions.
And that's what makes The Demoiselle so much more than just a funny play.
Right.
It's a work that challenges its audience to think critically about their own values,
Yeah.
to question societal norms,
Mhm.
and to consider the consequences of prioritizing wealth and status above all else.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of chaos and absurdity,
Yeah.
there's always hope for redemption, for individual growth, and for a society that values justice and compassion over material gain.
I agree.
It's fascinating how Brome manages to weave together these comedic and thought-provoking elements, so seamlessly.
Yeah.
He's holding up a mirror to society, forcing us to confront our own hypocrisies
Yeah.
and the often absurd lengths we go to for wealth and status.
Right.
But beyond the social critique,
Yeah.
are there any other key takeaways that you think listeners should consider?
Well, one of the things that struck me is how relevant these themes still are today.
Right.
I mean, we might not be auctioning off our daughter's virginity,
Sure.
but the obsession with wealth and the anxieties surrounding financial instability are as prevalent as ever.
It's true. I mean, who hasn't felt the pressure to keep up with the Joneses?
Right.
Or worried about making ends meet in an increasingly uncertain world?
Exactly.
It's almost like Brome anticipated these anxieties that continue to plague us centuries later.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And the way he portrays the new ordinary with its glittering facade and its underlying darkness
Right.
feels eerily familiar.
It does.
It's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving,
right.
and that the relentless pursuit of wealth can often come at a steep moral cost.
It makes me think about the lengths people go to project an image of success,
Yeah.
even when they're struggling behind the scenes.
Right.
It's like we're all living in a modern-day new ordinary,
Yeah.
constantly trying to impress others while grappling with our own insecurities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a powerful observation, and it speaks to the enduring relevance of Brome's satire.
Yeah.
He's not just commenting on 17th century London.
Right.
He's tapping into something fundamental about human nature,
Yeah.
our desires, our anxieties, and the compromises we make in the face of societal pressures.
And what about the characters who resist those pressures? What can we learn from those who choose a different path?
That's where I find a glimmer of hope in the play.
Yeah.
Characters like Valentine and Brookall, despite facing immense challenges, they refuse to compromise their values. They remind us that even in a world that seems driven by greed and self-interest,
Right.
it's possible to stand up for what's right,
Yeah.
to speak truth to power, and to advocate for justice.
It's a reminder that individual actions can have a ripple effect,
They can.
inspiring others to question the status quo
Yeah.
and fight for a more equitable and compassionate society.
Absolutely.
Even if it means challenging those in positions of authority
Right.
or going against the tide of popular opinion.
Right.
I think another important lesson we can glean from the Demoiselle is the power of humor
Yes.
to cope with adversity.
Absolutely.
Despite the play's dark themes,
Yeah.
it's filled with witty dialogue,
Yeah.
absurd situations,
Right.
and characters who find ways to laugh even in the face of despair.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if Brome was trying to tell us that sometimes the best way to confront the absurdity of the world is to find the humor in it.
I think he was.
Yeah, to laugh at the hypocrisy, the foolishness, and even our own shortcomings.
Yeah, it's a powerful coping mechanism.
It is.
Laughter can be a form of resistance,
Yeah.
a way to reclaim our power in situations that feel overwhelming or unjust.
Right.
It allows us to acknowledge the absurdity of a situation
Yeah.
while also finding a way to maintain our sanity.
So for those of you listening who are intrigued by this deep dive,
Yeah,
I highly encourage you to seek out the full play.
I second that.
It's a wild ride full of unexpected twists, hilarious moments,
Yes.
and thought-provoking insights that resonate even today.
They do.
You might even find yourself drawing parallels between the characters and situations in the play
Right.
and the world around you.
Exactly.
And who knows, you might even learn a thing or two about 17th century London along the way.
You will?
And on that note, we'll leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Imagine you were living in 17th century London.
Yeah.
How would you navigate this world of shifting social norms,
Right.
financial anxieties, and moral dilemmas?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Food for thought as you head back into your own modern-day new ordinary